Yeah. I mean, even the anti-cheat ones, a lot of them are, fully supported. Like I played Apex Legends for the longest time,
Mhm.
or there was one
Wow.
glorious weekend
Mhm.
where Rainbow Six Siege's anti-cheat broke, and
Uh-huh,
you could
uh-huh.
play it on Linux, and it has a proper Vulkan renderer too. Like that was awesome.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
wish it would be soft cared enough to just flip the switch.
mhm. Yeah, the anti-cheat thing is it's a problem, right? Because you're gonna have these game devs who do not want to enable the Linux support, whether it be your Fortnite, whether it be games like Apex Legends, which had support, and then we're like, nah, you don't you don't need that support anymore. Whether it be the various gacha games out there, which to be fair, some of them actually are getting Linux support, or they don't care that people are playing the game on Linux. There are means that you can get games that are not necessarily supported on Linux working and people aren't getting banned anymore. So I guess either they don't care or it's such a little problem that they're just like, we'll deal with it later. But the
I think
anti. Oh, go on.
I'm gonna say I think Roblox and Minecraft are sort of that way because Roblox lets the third-party clients exist and function, and then
Mm,
Minecraft has the Bedrock release that is just running the Android version on Linux, and they let it happen.
mm,
That's fine.
mm. Yeah, and the anti-cheat thing is really big because obviously, at this stage, isn't GTA 6 next year? And GTA Online for GTA 6 is going to be really big. And GTA 5 doesn't work right now with online, so that's very likely going to be the same state. And
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the good news with GTA is there's a dedicated modding community,
Mhm.
so I suspect Linux gamers will just be able to use third-party servers to play that game multiplayer and probably have a better experience anyway.
Yeah, well, if some of the problems with GTA 5 still exist, like the whole peer-to-peer IP sharing, yeah, you're probably right then. But this is a problem where there's been discussions of how it can be solved. It's not going to be solved without support from the anti-cheat like developers. But
Yeah.
there's been discussions of the possibility of maybe like a specific signed kernel, like there would be a SteamOS kernel. It would be this is the kernel it would have to run. I heard some discussions of maybe like doing some sort of kernel module based system. What are your thoughts here on like the approach that could be done? But like, what would you like to see done to make this? Because the anti-cheat problem's not going to go away. Like, we're going to have to deal with it some way, and Valve's in the best position to deal with it, like do something about it.
Yeah. The problem is it's multifaceted, right?
Right, right.
Um, the anti-cheat companies already provide Linux support,
Mm-hmm.
namely Easy Anti-Cheat and BattleEye.
Mm-hmm.
Also, older stuff like Punkbuster works fine too.
Yeah, yeah.
So that part's out the way. It leaves it now up to the wider game developer community, or
Mm-hmm.
worse, their publishers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of them will put in the effort to turn it on and then just not support Linux, and that's fine because the community will generally support itself, or Valve will through Proton, or you know, you get Glorious Eggroll coming in and making patches to his version. No matter what, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to run. But the opposite side of that is a publisher or a game developer going, hey, this is 4% of our audience, maybe, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to cost me $100,000 to keep one developer running support for this for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's not worth it to me. I'm not going to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
So getting past that, I think, is going to be the main hurdle. The higher numbers SteamOS can push, and this is part of why we're so transparent with our user numbers too.
Mm-hmm.
Just the more interest you can show, the better chance you get of developers paying attention. uh, I think the most recent example of that was Marvel Rivals. They
Mm-hmm.
actually listed Bazzite in one of their patch notes, so you don't
Must list that
get
one.
that was a pretty cool one, but you don't get that kind of interest unless you can show numbers and your users actually reach out and show that they care.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part one. Part two, the kernel thing that one's going to be rough.
Right.
I don't think the industry is going to go that route only because the sorts of invasive elements necessary for a kernel level anti-cheat are simply never going to be merged upstream. It is possible that Valve might ship their own custom patches, but I see them working through that in a different way. There's a path of least resistance there that doesn't involve kernel level stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only reason I bring that up is because the kernel level anti-cheat is like that is the direction this industry seems to be going with anti-cheat, and I don't see. See, the one exception is the games that support macOS, because macOS they don't allow any of this, but there are some of these games that still work on macOS. But it also is a much larger user base as well, so there is a financial justification there that even if they can't run the entry in the way they want to run it, there's still enough people in that system where they will find a way to do it anyway.
Yeah, well, that aspect I think is starting to flip. I think Linux will be bigger than macOS if it's not already, which will help. Part of it too is, let's see. Part of it too is just this is a cat and mouse game. Right. So you have kernel level being introduced to stop these, software-based cheats from working, and then you have cheat developers doing things now outside of the running system, like watching the screen with a GPU ML program and then moving a USB mouse.
Right.
So eventually the kernel level is not going to be good enough, and I think the industry will be forced to move to server-side, server authoritative methods, which would probably include some kind of ML to detect input behaviors reminiscent of, say, being able to see through walls. Because a player that knows where another player is does not behave the same as a player that doesn't, and that is a detectable state.
Yeah, I don't remember which game it was.
Just expensive.
Yeah. I don't remember which game it was, but this is probably a technique that's already been dealt with by the cheater, because as you said, it is a cat and mouse game. A few years back, there were player models being placed in areas where a regular player would not be able to get to, and they were using that as a means to detect people who are cheating. Because if you focused on the player who could not be seen in an area they could not get to, the only context that you would do that is if you could see through walls, if you had some form of aimbotting.
That's brilliant. I never thought of that, but I love the idea. A honeypot player.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a whole deep rabbit hole you can go down. Some games, cheaters have handshakes of how they interact with other cheaters. I think it was Tarkov or something. There's a wave back and forth they'll do where they bob their head back and forth if they see another cheater through the wall, so they know that we're allies here, we're both cheating, let's go after the other people. It's it's a really fun rabbit hole to go down and just explore what is just how weird things get.
Yeah. Well, and just seeing all the creative ways that companies deal with it is always fun too.
Yeah.
Valve, right? They've already spent a lot of time on this, and their answer was server-side anti-cheat. That's what VACnet is. So hopefully other companies follow, and that's the direction this ultimately goes.
Right.
But I don't think kernel can stick around forever. There's already workarounds for it.
The argument against that is the cheater situation in a lot of Valve games isn't super great. But to be fair, the games are really old as well, and I'm not sure how much Valve is really investing in fighting cheaters. Obviously those games make, TF2, TF2 still makes a lot of money. Counter-Strike, everybody knows that everybody knows, people who gamble on skins, we all know those make a lot of money, but I don't know how much money Valve is putting back into it to resolving the problem.
Yeah. Well, and I think ultimately Valve's in the only position to be able to answer that.
Sure.
CS2 is the only one with VACnet, so those are the only numbers that really matter for
okay.
determining how effective server-side anti-cheat is.
Mhm.
And then VAC as a whole has always done delayed bans to keep cheater developers from figuring out if their cheats were actually detected or not.
Mhm.
And therefore, hopefully, honeypotting other people that then go buy their cheats.
Yeah.
So it, while on one hand that's beneficial, on the other, it might give the perception that the anti-cheat is ineffective because of that grace period.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. The delayed ban thing is, I've heard the explanation for it and it makes sense. Like if you immediately ban someone for something they're doing, then you can use that as a way to A/B test whether or not something is going to get detected by the system. Like it makes sense as a approach, but it does mean that you're going to have quite a long time for there to be issues to be resolved. And I just wish people didn't cheat in online games. That would be nice. Like then we wouldn't have this problem.
That's the easier fix. Just please don't cheat. We're having fun here. No need for that.